Hello, beautiful light beings. Vicky Rebecca's here. Today, I wanted to talk about listening skills, communication skills, and a way that we can kind of maybe connect in a different way than most people are maybe used to, or maybe have not heard of, or actually have participated in and never really thought about doing it within their family system. So, I think it's super important that people don't recognize we are so disconnected. We have a tendency to be on social media more. We text constantly. We don't actually have phone conversations. Of course, many children nowadays have not learned how to communicate any other way other than to be doing so via their cell phone, which is sad to me, super sad. Because what's happened is we've lost this ability to truly have conversations with each other and speak from this place of not only hearing but knowing. So when I talk to clients, I notice that they're not being heard, and so I really talk about some of the reasons why people aren't actually heard. So you can imagine we all have our own wounds and trauma, and we have our own lens of how we view our past experiences, and some of those things are happening subconsciously. We're not actually even necessarily coming from this place of conscious reality. So let's say, as an example, client, doesn't have to be a client, any person who is having a conversation with somebody else, they're hearing what they want to hear. They're hearing from their own personal lens. So if they've had past experiences where they've been hurt, wounded, abused, um, told that they're nothing, have limiting beliefs of themselves, they have their own negative self-talk, they're hearing things from that perspective. We don't teach kids, we don't teach adults actually how to have listening skills and to hear each other, which is really, again, super sad to me. So when you want to actually listen and participate, it's super important to, of course, remove all distractions. If you're going to have a conversation with somebody, and whether it's important or not, it doesn't really matter. But certainly, if you have something to discuss that is of a important nature with your partner, then all social media, all phones need to be removed. You need to sit, look at each other, face each other, look each other in the eye, connect as humans, not just as like this inanimate object. This is the person that you should have some relationship with, person that you love, and to see whether or not you can be present with the words that are being spoken as opposed to what my thought process is, because this is what happens. So people are in their own thought process as they're having a conversation with somebody. Oh, this person doesn't like me. Oh, this person is being mean to me. Oh, we're having a full conversation in our head. We're not listening. It is extremely difficult to actually listen. So that's, one of the most important things is to how to listen. So again, making eye contact, looking at the person. And then in terms of your communication, sometimes it's helpful, especially if we're dealing with stuff that's sensitive. When we're trying to explain something, it's not about hurting the individual. So, and of course, we don't want to be blaming the individual, which we have maybe a tendency to do. You did this to me, you did that, and then of course the person hears, I'm a bad person. And they'll get defensive. And then once they're in defense mode, they're definitely not listening. So the brain doesn't know the difference between somebody having a weapon to you that's going to physically harm you and you feel like your life is truly at risk, and having an argument with anybody. Your brain believes the exact same thing. It goes into survival mode. I'm not safe. This person's not safe. So you're either going to fight, flight, or freeze. You're going to fight it out with this person. And if you do so, then the minute you both are in survival mode because your brain believes that something is happening here, then you're not in your rational thinking mind. You are coming from this place of, you don't even have a thought process. Your brain is brilliant. It's going to just check you out, and you're either going to have an inability to speak and maybe be frozen. You're going to want to flee and run away, and you're going to have a panic and feel anxiety around what this experience is because you don't know how to deal with it, or you're going to fight it out. Again, we're not taught conflict resolution. We're not taught actually how to confront. I don't like the word of confront, but just even having a conversation with somebody about difficult conversations and topics. So it's so important for people to be able to express themselves without the fear of retribution, without the fear of being ridiculed, without the fear of judgment, criticism, and that's what people are experiencing. So I really wanted to come on here and really let people know the importance of how to communicate with people and maybe do so in a different way. So firstly, again, as I stated, it's like sit down, have a conversation, look at each other, tell each other what we're going to talk about. So if you have to have a serious conversation about something with somebody, you want to kind of forewarn them because, again, people get stuck in their stuff. So they may have a tendency to think of the worst case scenario. So if you've ever experienced it, and this has happened to me, your boss is like, oh, I need to have a conversation with you. Can you come in and we're going to have a meeting? And you're like, holy shit, I'm freaking going to get fired or I'm going to be told all the bad things that I'm doing. And then you have a full day or two worrying about this conversation, thinking you're in trouble. And it just is sadly the way we experience the world, the way that our brain goes to this belief that something is wrong, something is bad. Again, it's trying to protect us and keep us safe. And when that happens, we have future thinking, catastrophizing thoughts, worst case scenario, something bad is happening to me. Because the brain is like going, we need to prepare. We need to make sure we're going to be okay. And so we start having this fantasy land about being in the future, about all these things that we think could potentially be happening. And it's not even close. Then you go into the meeting and the boss is like, hey, can you do this report for me? It's going to be really difficult and I need your help on it. And you're like, okay, thanks. Sure, no problem. And you think like, holy shit, I just had this like 3 days of panic over nothing, which is another thing that I really think is important that I also wanted to add here that's just come up as a reminder is people do this all the time. They don't have the ability to just ask and have a conversation with the person that they think something is happening with. So again, they get stuck in their thoughts. They're having a worst case scenario. My friend hates me. She didn't text me back. My boss is angry at me because he looked at me weird, or my partner doesn't love me anymore because we're not spending time together. And then they allow their brain to go into this, not only panic, but this fantasy land about thinking all of these things as being the truth about what's happening when they have no clue because they have not actually had a conversation with this person. And so what I say to that is it's the fear that holds people back, because the fear is like the worst case scenario. So I say to people, ask yourself, what's the worst case scenario if I have a conversation with this person about this thing that I'm fearful of? And usually it's a limiting belief of self. They're going to hate me. They're going to leave me. Whatever the case may be, it's usually something that they're worried about. And so what I say to that is, that's the fear speaking about that thing that you're really worried about. So you have to stop and say, is that actually happening? Is it true? Do I know that to be true? Where's the proof? The only proof that you can get is physically having a conversation with that person to find out what they're thinking. You can't assume you know what that person is thinking. Never. You don't even know what they're feeling emotionally. So as a result, I always say you need to go to the person directly that you believe there's something amiss with. And I can guarantee you, well, I can't guarantee you anything, but let's say 8 or 9 times out of 10, you're not even freaking close. It's not even that thing you're thinking about. That person is usually, and this is what happens, we get stuck in our own thoughts with our own limiting beliefs, or we have low self-esteem of ourselves, and so we think people think things of us. They don't have the time for that. People are in their own world, thinking about their own issues, what's happening in their world, their own stressors, their own difficulties. They don't have time to be worrying about what's happening for you or having an opinion of you unless you're having a relationship with them and that there is a struggle within that. Or it's just thoughts of that they love you, that they want to have connections with you and they're enjoying their relationship with you. Most people are not actually out to have negative thoughts about you and believe that you are something or something not, right? Most people don't. If people do, they will be direct with you. They may be, well, they may not be direct. They may be passive aggressive in their speaking in terms of uh, saying something like, I can't think of anything right now, but if you know somebody who's passive aggressive, it's an underhanded way of speaking. So they're kind of putting it out sneakily and then seeing whether you're going to pick up on it instead of being direct. You need to be direct. You need to be the point because people can't read your mind. And some people aren't going to pick up on passive aggressive behavior. They are just going to think you're being cruel, maybe critical. Um, and so they really don't know what the point is. So what I say is you need to be direct. You need to take the time to communicate and to listen. So you can speak in I statements in my book. I'm not sure what page it's on, but basically it's like when you speak to somebody, you want to speak in I statements so that you're not pointing fingers. I'm sad because we didn't get to spend time together this weekend. So what I'm needing for you is, can we please make sure we spend more time together, right? Like, what's the emotional state? If you can speak from, again, I feel this as a result of this experience, and this is what I need from you, right? And so then once that happens, once you speak in the way that you need to speak, then it's the next step would be I tell people, you have to say, what did you hear me say? Because people don't listen and they don't hear you. They're in their world going like, having conversation, like, as I said earlier, with themselves in their own head, having a super conversation going, hey, oh, my taxes are due and I wonder when I should get that done. Or they're believing you're saying something about them that's not reality. So here's the example I usually use in therapy with people. Let's say my partner always is late for work or late for dinner and never texts me when he's going to be late. And so I'm here worrying, like, person's in an accident. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I should be eating dinner. I don't know if they're going to show up. And so then as a result, this is disturbing to me and it's upsetting to me and it's troubling to me. And my partner has no idea if I've never brought it up. So again, you can't keep these things. And then this is what people do as well. They never tell the person because they may have difficulty speaking up, believing that they can speak up about their own personal needs. So then they hold on to it. And they're like going, oh, I'm really frustrated by this thing, but I don't have a right to speak up of the fact that my partner keeps coming home late. Of course you do. If it's troubling to you and upsetting to you, you need to see whether or not that person will actually respond in kind, and are they able to make change? Are they willing to listen to what's bothering you and make change? Otherwise, you'll become resentful. If you don't speak up, you'll start resenting this person for this behavior, but they have no idea this behavior is upsetting to you. So you need to actually let them know. And again, very kind, respectful way. You're not yelling at them. But this is the other thing that happens is people hold on, they never speak. And then boom, they lose their shit. And the minute an argument happens, all of a sudden they're unloading all of this stuff that they've experienced about this person, all these bad things. And the person's like, what the hell just happened? I don't even know any of this stuff, and I'm supposed to respond. And so again, when we're in fight, flight, freeze, and we're having an argument with somebody, we're going to say things. We're not in our rational thinking brain. We're going to say things in sometimes and often a very hurtful way because we are trying to fight our way through it. And so we say things that we regret. And I don't want people to be there. I want people to be able to communicate. So when something is an issue, you need to address it immediately. Give the person an opportunity to be like, oh yeah, maybe I should say something. And maybe this person gets to go like, oh shit, I didn't know that bothered you or that upset you. Of course I can change. But going back to the example I had, so let's say I tell the person, it's really troubling to me that you don't, I feel super, I feel upset that you don't text me when you're going to be late because I don't know if I'm supposed to eat. And then I'm worried about you. And so what I need from you is to please let me know when you are going to come home. So then the very next thing that I would want the person, or I would say to the person, and I tell people to say to that person is, what did you hear me say? Because if you don't ask them, They may not hear what you've actually stated. So in this example, let's say my partner goes, I ask them, so what did you hear me say? I just told you that I got upset. I get upset as a result of you not showing or not texting me when you're going to be late because I don't know what's happening and I don't know if you're safe. And then you say to the person, what did you hear me say? And let's say his response is, you think I'm a bad partner. You think I'm a bad husband. I'm like, whoa, I didn't say any of that. None of those words came out of my mouth. But that is what the person is interpreting based on their own beliefs of themselves, their limiting beliefs, or their negative self-talk, and or previous experiences where they've been criticized, maybe by you, maybe by past partners, and their brain is the file folder. It stores all of this stuff, and some of it's subconscious, but it's sitting there informing the person that, oh, people tell me that I'm this, I'm that. And if they buy into it, that's what their belief is. So now you're not having a conversation. You're not having the same conversation. This person truly thinks that they're bad. They can't hear you now. They are checked out. And so you say, no, that's not what I said. You repeat it. You have to keep repeating it. What I said was, I'm really upset when you don't text me because I don't know if I'm supposed to eat dinner or you're safe. So what I would like for you is to please text me and let me know you're coming home or when you're coming home. That's all I'm asking. I'm not saying anything about you as a human being, as a person. There's no criticism in there at all. And you keep repeating it, saying, what did you hear me say? Until you get some semblance of a response that is similar to what you said. And only then do you know that you're actually on the same page with the person. If you don't, you're not on the same page with that person, and he's having a completely different conversation than you are. So that's what I say in terms of connecting, communicating, again, sitting down and being present, and moving forward. In the next part of this video, I just really wanted to talk about a different way because I think it's wonderful. And anytime I've experienced sharing circles and using a talking stick, which is what I want to talk about now, is it's a beautiful experience. So I wanted to bring this up in terms of you can do this at home. Create a sharing circle for your family. You can do this with your kids. How beautiful is that? You can do it just you and your partner, and it gives permission for people to actually stop and listen. So I wanted to give some insight about the history of talking sticks, and then talk a little bit about sharing circles. So because I can't say these names or know them off by heart, and I just wanted to speak directly to this. I'm just going to read specifically from kind of like a historical perspective of what a talking stick is and where it came about. So it is stated that it originated with Native American tribes, the Mohawk, the Seneca, the Cayuga, the Oneida, and the Onondaga, that these tribes were suffering. And they were dying, there was starvation, there was a lot of war between them. And so there was an elder named, and forgive me if I completely butcher this name, Deganawida. Basically, he became known as a great peacemaker. So what he did was he planted a great tree of peace so that these 5 tribes would find peace and live in peace together in harmony. And it is stated that the branches would protect the people, and the white roots of truth would reach out to the 4 directions, north, south, east, and west, carrying the news of peace. And so when they would get together, it would give them an opportunity to listen to each tribe had the opportunity to speak in what we would call sharing circle. So I wanted to kind of like give you an understanding of what a sharing circle is. Again, so it's an indigenous Aboriginal way of allowing people to give them space so that they could have an opportunity to speak, to be able to speak uninterrupted from their hearts. It is a part of the oral tradition. And we don't keep this, which it saddens me. We don't even know what's going on. Like even I don't even know stories of my own parents. And they're elderly. They're going to pass away. They don't speak of it probably because, of course, a lot of it is is from a wounded place of trauma. But it's also that opportunity to give voice to those things that were traumatic for you. Um, Again, in an extremely safe, that's the most important thing. Sharing circles need to be considered a safe place that you feel safe, that you will not be judged, you will not be criticized, and you will be heard. And so the idea is by sharing your story, even of just your day, of what you're experiencing in that moment, how beautiful is it to be, number one, heard for what is happening for you, to have a witness. And I think this is so important that and to me, that's what therapy is about, is to give witness, to hold space. People don't know how to hold space. Holding space for somebody is not, we have a tendency, we're all vying for time. We are vying for some attention. I mean, social media is a perfect example of that. How many posts can I put up and see whether or not I'm going to get any attention back? Is somebody going to like my post? We're craving it. There is such a deep need and a longing to be seen, to be accepted, to belong, to be heard. And we don't have the opportunity to do that. And we become such a polarized society as a result of everything that's going on in the world. We don't even want to talk about things and give people permission to just talk about what matters to them, what is at the forefront for them of what is important to them, whatever worldview that is, without judgment, without the need to have a fight or an argument about you're wrong and I'm right. It's not about that. It's about listening to this person's perspective to maybe then, if we actually give permission, there may be ability to sit and have room for even for us to then go like, oh, wow, I never thought of that before. Oh, wow, this seems like this person is super passionate about this, without that, fight or flight response where we have to fight it out to the death because our worldview is the only worldview. It's crap. None of our worldviews is right, but it's right for us, right? So you get to decide what is right for you, and you get to have your own opinion about stuff. It's not about changing people. We have this belief that, my opinion matters, so you're wrong, so then I have to go in and change your mind about it. It's not changing your mind about it. It's not, you don't have a right to do so, actually. You can help people to experience what you experience and to give them insight, and they get to choose for themselves if it's right or if it's not right. Point blank. One of the other things that is really difficult is that people don't know how to sit in silence. People need to fill space, always talking or checking out through social media, through TV, through internet, through video games, whatever. We have become a society that is, if I have to sit in silence and be with myself, even just myself, it is so uncomfortable that people can't deal with it and they check out. So you can imagine when we are actually connecting with people, people need to fill it. What's the next thing I need to say? Oh, there's a moment of silence. Oh my goodness, what are we going to do now? And what I love about sharing circles, again, is that it gives an opportunity for us to sit in the silence while that person collects their thoughts and gets this chance to stop and think and go like, whoa, do I have something else that I want to say in my time here? What is important for me? So one of the things that I wanted to bring up is, of course, because people are feeling this, needing to fill silence. The other thing is they talk over people. Everybody's like clamoring. This is my point. This is what I got to say. And people talk over top of each other. And I had a client recently talk about this, how she didn't even get the ability. She feels like she's an outsider and she doesn't know she can't just jump in. She doesn't know when to jump in. She doesn't know how to jump in. So it was really important for me to understand that she doesn't need to jump in. Unfortunately, these people don't know how to give room for her. So you have to think about, and this is another thing we don't think about, sadly, is that there's many people out there who are extremely shy. They're introverted. They're very self-reflective. They can't speak quickly. They have to take time to think about their thoughts and like, what am I going to say? How do I even feel about this conversation? I don't know. And there's many people out there who are in relationships where the person expects that person to respond immediately, and the person's like, I have no opinion. So then they'll agree with the other person, or they'll give away some of, take away their own personal agency and give up some right. Yeah, I guess I'll go to that party with you this weekend. I don't even know if I want to. I don't even know if it's about. They can't ask questions. They're truly in fight, flight, freeze. They're stuck. When somebody confronts somebody, or they're kind of like spotlighted in a conversation and somebody actually points to them and says, hey, what's your thought about this? And they're just like frozen. They're like deer in the headlights. Holy shit, what is this person asking of me? They don't know. So it's beautiful in a sharing circle to give permission for those people who need time, and to also be included, because many people who are introverted are not going to come into the conversation. They're just going to sit back and they don't feel comfortable. So again, holding space is super important, and that's what I think about what's wonderful about experiencing a sharing circle. Everyone is equal. Everybody has an opportunity to speak, to take as much time as they want. Now you can stipulate it. So in sharing circles that I've been involved with, sometimes we have, usually there's somebody who is kind of like the leader, for the lack of a better word. They kind of like, maybe they're the host and they're hosting a sharing circle for people. You can do this with your family, you can do this with your friends, you can do it with anyone. And so the idea is that maybe that person who is hosting can say, like, maybe they discuss like, what is it? So maybe first round, you can have several rounds. This can take hours. Like, I've been in sharing circles where we don't stop until everybody has spoken, maybe a certain amount of rounds. And maybe with breaks for going to the bathroom, but until everybody has an opportunity to speak, we can go until like 2, 3 in the evening, in the morning, and truly give permission for everybody to have an exploration. So the person who's maybe the host again maybe starts and says, like, okay, first go around is like, just tell us what's happening for you, what's going on in your world. Right? Speak from your heart. And then maybe a second round is more expression of that. Or again, you can do a focal point. Let's engage on like something else. Like, maybe it's a focus on like, what are you looking for? Or what are you hoping for your future? And then sometimes at the end, which I really love and we've done in sharing circles, is maybe just a one-word ending. So then the last round is like one word for where you're at now, how you're feeling emotionally, what your experience is for this sharing circle, and what came up for you. And it can be like, peace, excited, anything for that person of what it is. And it's nice to kind of like end that way. So that's an idea. So I hope you'll use this, and I think you should really use this with your family. And if you have an opportunity to do so, I think it's a brilliant and it's a beautiful thing. So it's really important to understand that there's rules to the game. If you're going to do a sharing circle with people you don't know, whoever is hosting needs to basically state that everything that's shared here today is personal and confidential, and that every person needs to have be in agreement and say yes to that. They will hold anything that's spoken here by anybody as confidential. You may not do that in a family. It's not necessarily. We hope that people would do that. It's also important that when people, again, if you're coming together as a group of friends or in a community, that those rules are kind of stated, but also that you don't then go to that person afterwards, because again, people want to talk. People want to have their own freaking opinion about somebody else's experience, or they want to help them. I have some great insight for you, or I want to give you some advice about that thing you're struggling with, because I know and I've gone through it, so it's all about me. And this is what people do. People talk over people, and they interrupt them when they're having a conversation and they're talking about themselves, and it's like, oh, well, I've experienced that. Oh, well, this happened to me. And it is diminishing that person's experience. Most people don't want your advice. They don't want to hear about how that's similar to you unless they ask for your permission and say, hey, have you ever gone through something like this? Can you give me some insight? Most people don't ask for that because they don't want it. They just want to be heard. They want to give voice to whatever they're going through. They want to be they want somebody to be a witness to their pain, to their suffering, to their joy, to their celebration, to their excitement of something they've gone through. They don't need somebody diminishing it by basically having to one up them. So keeping that in mind, it's another thing that people do. So why is sharing circle and having a talking stick is super important. So again, one thing that I wanted to also state is in a sharing circle, you don't actually have to speak, which is beautiful if you have children, especially teenagers don't really want to be speaking. There may be some resistance to doing this, but what I say is if you kind of do it and you start creating this as a ceremony and as something that your family does as a tradition, they will start talking. They will start, again, you need to create safety and you need to create trust. That people are not going to like now talk about you or come and bring it up and like going like, oh my God, you told me that you're cutting and now we need to, well, of course, that's a safety issue. So yes, you as a parent would probably have to have a conversation about that. Or, maybe it's just like, oh, I'm really struggling in this grade. And then the child does not need then the parent to come to them and go, oh my God, you're struggling. We need to work, we need to work about this. We need to figure it out. We need to help you. What do you need from us, right? They're like, that's not the point of a sharing circle. Of course, there's limits. If somebody's harming themselves, yes, you have to make sure that they're okay. But it's about giving permission to have speaking about your feelings without anybody having to then bring it back up. It's about being heard, being witnessed, having somebody listen, hold space for you while you go into that stuff. So again, it will be indicative if you have small children, depending if you have really small children, even teenagers, you're not talking about what is happening between you and husband. You're not talking about things that belong only between the two of you. So you have to think about the things that you can speak up as a family that is conducive to your child's age and what they should hear about. And again, the other thing that's really important and to keep people on task, you are not there blaming other people in your sharing circle. You are not now talking about the other person that's sitting there or not sitting there. It's not a place for blaming or shaming. It's not a place for bringing up things that your arguments in terms of like what is happening between you and somebody else. It's about you personally and how it's affecting you. So you may say in general, like, I'm really struggling to feel heard in my relationship. And then what is that happening for you? Even if your partner is sitting there. But again, it has to be about you. It's not about blaming, no pointing fingers, no talking about Sally at work and what she's done. I don't care about Sally. This is a place for you to talk about you and how it's affecting you, because the whole idea about a sharing circle is it gives permission for you to really heal and process out your experience and your emotional qualities, to feel into your emotions. This can be extremely emotional. So be prepared if that's difficult for you. If you're doing a sharing circle with certain people, they will go deep. And the more rounds you have, they will go deeper because they'll feel safe to do so and speak up about things that are really troubling them. And so to be a witness that, be prepared that some people are more, again, maybe some more sensitive people will cry. And you don't have to be sensitive only to cry, right? The most hardened and person who has difficulty with their emotions will likely get emotional because they're finally connecting and tapping into that part of themselves that they haven't been willing to actually feel into. That's what's the beauty about sharing circle. So I wanted to talk about a talking stick and the point of a talking stick. So again, the idea is you pass around a talking stick in a sharing circle so that everybody has an opportunity to talk. How brilliant is that? It also encourages everybody to listen, and they have to then listen to that person. Again, you're holding space, you're being present. You do not speak when that person has the talking stick. You don't get to say anything, no inflection, no nothing. Maybe you nod. You get to have eye contact with that person, right? If that feels good to do so, because then that person gets to be seen. For some, that can be overwhelming. Some people may not look at you, and that's okay. When some people are talking about certain things, it may bring up shame in them. So you know when somebody's experiencing shame is when they're hiding. They may cover their eyes or they may look down, because it's very difficult when you have shame to be a witness to somebody who is tapping into their shame. But it is a beautiful place to really just hold space for that. Again, having a talking stick gives permission so that you're not in competition for time and attention. Every single person gets as much time as they need, right? And again, if there's a lot of people and you're like, we're going to have a time limit, then what we do is, if there is a time limit, somebody is designated as a timekeeper for each round, because you can have 20, 40 people in a sharing circle. And of course, then, yeah, most people can't stay till 6 in the morning and do a whole nighter. So there may be like a 2-minute or a 3-minute limit. So one person will be the timekeeper. And when the person is getting close, like let's say 15 seconds left or 30 seconds left, the person stands in the sharing circle. They cross their arms and they don't speak. They just stand in the sharing circle. They wait for that person to acknowledge and that they've seen that their time is almost up. And that's their cue to wrap it up. And then it gets passed on to the next person. Again, sharing circles and having a talking stick builds trust and safety, because the person knows they're not going to be interrupted, that they get to spend as much time as they need to. And again, it gives permission for having respect for that person's, for their ideas, for their feelings, for their experiences, for whatever contribution they want to make, and that there's room for it. So you can use anything for a talking stick. You can physically use a stick. Hence why it's called a talking stick. You could use a beautiful wand with some crystals on it, or a just singular crystal. You can use a beautiful stone, right? And it can be anything that has meaning to you. This one has faith on it. Sometimes people use, which is often, a beautiful feather, right? And it's wonderful when you have something, because people sometimes need to fidget. They need something to have that as they're talking, they feel that it kind of helps people to work through the energy of what it is that they're going through. And so they'll play with it. Usually people will play with it. Another fun thing is a squeegee ball. So again, being able to play, people who are anxious can kind of like, is this nervous? For some people, this is very anxiety, provoking for being able to speak in front of people. So having something that they can play with is wonderful. And if you're doing a fun kind of like more open sharing circle, instead of physically going around to each person, the person that's just spoken, or if you're doing kind of like a different kind of sharing circle, it's not physically sharing circle, but you're passing around ideas, then you can throw this to the next person. You want them to what's their thought about this thing that we're talking about. It's a different way, but maybe that can be used for where we're collaborating on things and having our ideas and thoughts be put in, as opposed to a true sharing circle where a person is really exploring some deep feelings. You don't want to be throwing something at their head and they're like in a deep, they're in a very deep self-reflective place and an emotional place. It's maybe that's too lighthearted. This is, I think, passing it around and throwing it to different individuals is more when you're having a beautiful open discussion about a topic in general that is lighthearted, and doesn't necessarily have to be lighthearted. It can be serious, but that gives permission for some fun and playfulness as well. So talking sticks, super important. Again, when that person has that talking stick, nobody else gets to speak. And they can sit, and if there's silence, you sit and you wait. And that person is thinking. You can tell they're maybe looking up, trying to collect their thoughts. They're having a self-reflection about what they want to state. Are they complete? Take as much time as you need to, really, truly, to feel like you are complete, that what you have to say is heard and done, that you have what you have to offer is being shared. And again, you get to decide how whatever you're going to share. And again, some people are going to get emotional, so they may cry for 10 minutes. If a person is then passed, usually it's kind of like passed around, and usually in sharing circles, in any kind of like shamanic traditions, we want to do it clockwise because there's an energy to that, and you're bringing in that energy. So it would start from left and go around. Okay. Usually the person who's the host usually starts off, so that kind of helps to break the ice, and maybe they have a theme that they're going to talk about. They tell you what it is. And again, if it's something that you're doing for a group of people, let's say you're getting together with a group of ladies that you haven't met before, then the first introduction go around is like, hi, my name is so-and-so. This is the reason that I've joined this sharing circle. And this is my intention for my hope for this group. It gives information to the host of the group to know what is happening for that person and how they can ensure that what that person's expectations are for this group are being met. So another beautiful thing. So then, yes, passing it around clockwise. And again, if it's passed to you, and I'm like, I'm not ready to share, I'm scared, I don't know what, maybe have nothing to say today, or I don't have anything to share about that topic at that moment, I pass it on. And then when the person ends, in Peruvian shamanic traditions, when the person is completed, we are acknowledging them by what they've shared with us. So we acknowledge them in some way, and in Peruvian shamanic traditions, we say hayaya. And that is just to acknowledge that the person has spoken and that we have witnessed and heard them, and they are complete. You can say thank you. Some other indigenous traditions say oho. And you can decide, but it's an acknowledgement to that person's sharing. Right? And then it's passed to the next person. Then they choose to speak or not. And then again, you can do as many rounds as you can. So I think that's all I have to say about this. I hope that was helpful, interesting. I hope you use it, even if it's just you and your partner. I gives permission that the person's not going to be interrupted and that person is being heard. So that's what I have to say. It is Good Friday here today. And I just wanted to wish everybody a happy Easter this weekend for those that are celebrating. And yes, enjoy. Wishing you all the best. Again, if you like this, please click the like button, share, and to those you feel might be needing to hear this and who can support, and subscribe so that you can hopefully hear more about my stuff and get notified when I do stuff and that is of interest to you. So thank you so much. Enjoy your lovely long Easter weekend. Take care.